So, long story short, one of the main characters, Kramer, lives next door to there's a new fast food chicken place that comes in, and it's a giant sign, like a red hot, like giant chicken shining into his light, and it's like every time he opens the door, you see like this, like it looks like Mars because there's this light coming in, and he's like, I can't sleep, I can't think, I can't like all, and that's what I picture for the people around. It's
for
just
sure, it's just like this, like they open the door, it's just like yellow, but it's not the sun.
It's the sun just like burning their eyes. So I hope that's not the case. I'm sure people have thought that through. Part 3 of my conversation with Margaux. So this time we're going to talk about some of these things that we've seen in social media that have piqued our interest. And the one I wanted to talk to you about, because I think it's really funny. So it's the headline for this. It says the latest animation on the the latest animation on the Las Vegas Sphere is freaking people out. The 580,000 square foot display is giving an all new meaning to nightmare fuel. And it's that smiley face that's like following people around. I don't know if people have seen it. I thought it was a joke when I first saw it.
I thought it was VR or like I don't know, like augmented reality at first. Yeah. For sure. I was like, oh, that's so funny. Like someone like, you know, like animated it basically into the background. But I personally find it hilarious.
Yeah.
I like there's like things that I like love about it. Mm-hmm. Like I love that everyone knows it immediately. Yeah. It's like you heard like whispers of like, oh, there's like, at least in my world, like, oh, there's like this like a new screen thing that's happening in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Las Vegas?
I can't say it anymore.
Is that how do you say it?
Las Vegas? Yeah. It's been a long day. Las Vegas, that's it.
Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah, like everyone is talking about it. So like great job to like get something across the world. Like what things happen that you actually hear about that happen in like one city and you hear about it in another city. Like that's a feat in itself. So like great job on that. Mm-hmm. It's like I find it hilarious. Like I think it's a really funny thing. Mm-hmm. Would I want to see it? Like personally, like wake up and look out the window and like see a smiley face staring at me? Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think I would want to see that. Yeah, I don't know.
It's funny. I don't know if you've seen, there's this one movie, I think it's an Adam Sandler kind of like movie where it's like, I think it's called Pixels. And basically brought all like the different video games to life. And there's a scene with like a giant Pac-Man. And that's what it reminded me of. I was like, oh, it's a movie thing. Yeah. But no, it's like, it's legit. And
people watch movies inside, like it's a theater inside. Yeah. Which is super cool.
Yeah. Like, I heard there's a U2 residency happening, like the band U2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's not it's not going that way. I read it yesterday.
That's the residency they chose?
Yeah, that's also the reaction people are having. They're just like, interesting, because then like the latest stats I think I saw yesterday or the day before where they're like they've lost money ultimately on it. Like it's not pulling in the crowds that they thought. And then someone's like, of course, because you put U2. No offense to U2 lovers out there.
No offense to U2, but like I wouldn't be the first partner I would have done. Like maybe like NASA, you know?
Oh my gosh, NASA.
Like
okay. we said it first. So like if you take it, remember where this came from. Message and like invoice MASSIV Art.
Yeah.
Slash Margaux.
Actually pay us and we'll program it to make it a lot better.
Exactly. Yeah. That's funny though, because you know what? Okay, first of all, NASA would be really cool.
Yeah.
Second of all, I think that gets to the crux of like when you do cultural planning, like you can make a space, but like it's the programming ultimately that makes it like live. There's this one organization for those listening called like Project for Public Spaces, and they have this theory about like what makes a place, I guess what turns a space into a place. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like 8 or 10.
10, so 10, the power of 10.
The power of 10, there you go. So you gotta have 10 touch points of things to do, and it doesn't have to be like, it's not like necessarily shopping, although one of them is one of them. One of them is also like shopping, but it could be like sitting. It's something visually to look at. It could be like somewhere to sit, like very like simple things, but you gotta have 10 of them, and that's what attracts, I guess, 10 different sort of users to make a space into a place worth visiting. And that's they kind of fumbled the bag a little bit from what I've read, at least in that sense. Yeah.
Well, it's like it's also like I don't know. when I think about like my clients, I'm like, what do you want to achieve? If it's like something to talk about, like go for that weird smiley face. But if it's like something that people are gonna like really enjoy, like how do you program it? And that's where like my current role is like a lot about programming. Most of my day, I'm like trying to figure out how to program a space, and it's something that I like have less experience in. A little bit at steps, not so much like, but outside of that though. And it's like, it's almost like a little scary because it's like, how do you program a space that is going to be good, that's going to have all your different users? And like for them, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you though. I do the same thing in like the exhibition work that I co-lead at the Infrastructure Institute. And it's like, okay, we made an exhibition, and obviously it's meant to like educate people and bring people to learn more about city building and stuff. And even the work we do here at Untitled Planning, like we're trying to, teach people about different aspects of planning, but it's also like, but like you have a place or you have like a platform, but then how do you bring people to it? And like and that is also, it's a talent, it's a skill, there's a magic to it. And it's a learning curve for me too.
Yeah, no, I can't. I just like it, like that costs so much money, and like we were like recently doing like a study on like, okay, if you have like a big screen that's facing a public space, our clients often have like economic, goals that they need to reach. Like their board is like, you need to make this much money a year. Like that's realities that we have to work with. But like our challenge is like, okay, we know that we have advertising that we need to do, or like sponsors, or rentals, whatever, of that space, or like billboard. But like how much of it can we then get, and then how much can we have left for art, and like how do we then draw people in with that art? And so I feel like with Lost Vegas, it's such like a missed opportunity to be like the coolest art canvas. I'm like sure they might do it, or like I don't know if the smiley face counts as art for some people. It does in some sense. I don't know if it's marketing, so maybe it's art. The question mark around what is public art. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like it's like it has potential to be really good, but like maybe not a smiley face, and maybe not you too. Like maybe there's like way better things that like could be profitable and benefit people with that crazy canvas. Like it's really interesting. Or how do you interact with it? Like a huge thing is like interacting with art. Like how cool would it be if like when you shine your light onto the sphere, it like you can see that light then like echo throughout it, and that's like like every like 30 minutes at night, or sorry, now I'm going on a tangent, like New York Times Square before midnight, I think it's like every night or like once a month, I forget when it is, but the whole square turns into art. It's like there's like it must be like, I think it's every night at midnight for like 4 minutes, every screen in New York Times Square turns into an art piece. They have like an artist residence, so like their work is projected everywhere, and I'm like,
that's so nice.
It's so cool, and it's like,
oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and as an example of like just like, I don't know, balancing.
I mean, for me, what would be really cool is that like I've seen it in other exhibitions or like public art installations where it's like there's like an app usually, and then like whatever the community like does on the app, it kind of like appears on the screen. So it would be fun to see like whatever the prompt is, whatever it is that like I guess like honestly, it could be the city could use it and be like, we're curious, like what do you think about
like a survey,
like, but like, and then like the responses would be like somehow visually like, or I don't know how, but that's when the artists come in.
It's like a word cloud, but like it's like
fun. Like, I don't know, like something interesting or something that you can manipulate so that you feel like there's like a sense of ownership, and it's not like this giant orb. It's like I'm just like also thinking, because like if you go to like Yonge and Dundas at night, and then like it's bright, like my eyes, I'm like the lumens, they're burning my corneas. So I'm like, I can't imagine the giant sphere for like everybody. I don't know. Have you ever watched Seinfeld?
Some.
There's this one episode, funnily enough. Okay, so long story short, one of the main characters, Kramer, lives next door to there's a new fast food chicken place that comes in, and it's a giant sign, like a red hot like giant chicken shining into his light. And it's like every time he opens the door, you see like this, like, it looks like Mars because there's this light coming in and he's like, I can't sleep, I can't think, I can't, like, and that's what I picture for the people around. It's
Oh,
just
for
like,
sure. It's just like this, like they open the door, it's just like yellow, but it's not the sun.
it's the sun just like burning their eyes. So I hope that's not the case. I'm sure people
like,
have thought that through.
Yeah, or like even like on an urban, like a human scale, like it must be intimidating to like be around something that's like so big,
massive,
and like then you like it would feel uncomfortable. Like it wouldn't have,
yeah, and that's like the issue I think with a lot of, and I think going back to what we were talking about in our first part of our conversation, talking about Montreal and how it kind of stuck to those like kind of European roots, and it's not necessarily just Europe, but like even like other places in like Mediterranean and like the Middle East and Africa also. Like you have the scale of buildings are more people oriented. So like when you walk through the streets, it feels like it's you're a part of the street and not the street and then there's you. Like we do something downtown where I'm like, I can't see the sky, I see nothing but glass, where am I?
Yeah.
But here it's like you're very much a part of it, and it creates a different feel as you walk down the streetscape. But,
So another thing that I'm like getting more like into, it's like I've always been into it just like through urban design and urban planning is like feeling, but definitely like a lot more lately is just like really getting into like when you're looking at a space, like how do you want to feel, how do you like currently feel, and like like just thinking about like more feeling centered, which is nice.
I like that. That's a perfect segue to the second kind of exhibition or public art thing that's caught my eye, and it's sparked from something you said when we were talking about, okay, what do we want to talk about in this segment, and you talked about trauma-informed placemaking approach, and that was the first time I heard that. But it also got me thinking, because it's like when you talk about trauma, you talk about grief, these are things that are quite taboo. Like, I don't know, if you look at, I should encourage everyone to look at their like kind of like bereavement days that they have on their like contracts. Like they vary quite a bit. I think there's like, I think like 3.
I think you're like 2. I think 2 or 3.
And I'm like, dang, I have to condense all that sadness into 3 days.
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, so what triggered, or from that, I started looking to see some articles, and it turns out, funnily enough, happening right now at the Evergreen Brickworks is the Spaces of Grief exhibition. And so it was described as Space for Grief, is an award-winning public art installation that explores community bonding and healing through grief. Industrial architecture and organic plant materials create a surreal environment for reflection and meditation, while prompts guide visitors to reflect on experiences in their lives. And there's an accompanying soundscape composed specifically for the installation that act as a soundtrack for one's memories. And it delves into an understanding into the many ways that we need to process our grief, heal as individuals, local communities, and the public at large, with the hope of destigmatizing these practices, policies, and emotions associated with grieving, and I guess in space and togetherness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Like that's like truly, I don't know. Like I think there's like so much to it. Like I feel like my work is like so ingrained in like post-COVID, so I keep on bringing it up, which is so annoying. Like I wish I could bring it up, but it's like still so relevant.
Yeah.
Sure. The fact that like that was the first time that like a lot of like people, like a lot of people across the entire world, or at least in our generation, was able to like collectively experience trauma, and like have time away from like regular tasks, because there was like that couple week period where like it felt like everything stopped. Like I was in school all of a sudden was like over, you're in this like all of a sudden liminal space, experiencing trauma, but then also able to like have time away from like everything. I feel like that was like the first time where like people were like able to like process grief that like they might have not had processed for a really long time, and we're able to like realize like how important it is to like process grief and trauma, to be able to like connect on it collectively, so like break those stigmas of like you internalizing that, which has been like so much of like generations after generations internalizing their trauma, and like not being able to like be connected, or like really be able to like also like I want to find another word of like get over. It's not getting over, but like
I guess
processing it. That's a better word.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you like that was the first time that like I feel like collectively there was that experience, and so much since then, there's been like trauma informed has been like a buzzword. You have like trauma. I still don't know, like it's kind of like a buzzword, but it's also like a practice.
Yeah, for
I'd
sure.
say.
Yeah.
But like becoming more mainstream, where you like you have trauma informed therapy. You have like trauma informed and harm reduction practices, where you're all of a sudden like creating space for like hard feelings or like hard realities to like really be accepted in society, where like, you know, instead of like looking down for someone who's experienced trauma or like not giving them space to grieve or process that, or like same with like harm reduction, instead of like trying to like, I don't know, like just like taking a more like humans centered approach of like understanding and like recognizing like basic human feelings and like processes and valuing those as like any other type of emotion, is became so important. And so I forget how I stumbled onto trauma informed placekeeping, but I feel like it was like a Bloomberg article, and it talked about. I think this was the first time I heard about it, and then I like recently rediscovered that article. But it's basically about this like, oh, I almost want to pull it up because then I'm gonna butcher all the facts. But it was like this like house that was in a town in the States. I don't want to say what town it is because I don't know. I want to say like Virginia or like Pennsylvania, somewhere in this section of the States.
Yeah.
But there was a house, and the house used to be owned by someone who was like they were like part of the Atlantic slave trade, and so the house was categorized as like a historic home, and so that gets into a whole other topic of like heritage and like what heritage do we? I don't want to get into that, but like we could maybe for another day. Anyway, so it was like categorized as like a heritage home and like protected. So then the Parks Department was like, what do we do with this home? Like, how do we, like, it's a home that like has a lot of like terrible associations with it. Do we get rid of it? Like, it has this protection onto it. So like, what do we do? And so what came of it is the city partnered with a black, like I think it was a black queer arts collective who then took over the space, and they were then able to like kind of like transform almost the energy in this space to like be from something that was like owned by this like terrible person, has such a traumatic history, and was able to like reclaim that space and be like, no, this is actually a site for us. We're reclaiming it. Obviously, I'm speaking from them, and like they're reclaiming the space, and like we're able to like bring in their own programming where it was like it became a space for like meditation and became a space for arts and for like healing and like connecting community. So like that's where I like started to really think about like, why don't there's so many of these spaces, especially in like in Canada, we're on stolen land. How do we like, there's so many ways that we can bring kind of like trauma informed placekeeping and like placemaking into like our daily lives. And so that, getting back to like that specific instance, I think it's like so important, especially like right now with like what's happening in the world like right now. I think everyone is experiencing, and once again, like a collective trauma. You open up your phone and it's just like constant trauma that you're being kind of like second-hand exposed to, or like first-hand or third-hand, whatever way you're kind of like related to world events right now. But like there's so much trauma and so much grief, and I think there's like a lot of, not only is there that public art and like installation that's happening, but there's so many different kind of like groups getting together and being able to like share grief in space. And I think that it's like such a healing thing to do, and so like vital for our community. And I like recently just like wrote a policy for a city to be like, I rewrote their commemoration policy and like was trying to center grief in that, because I think that we've almost been doing it wrong. Like we've been doing commemoration wrong. Like who are we commemorating, what type of events? And like so many times like Ryerson, that statue that was in TMU, like rightfully like shouldn't be there. But also like what do we do with that, and like how do we then like turn a space that like makes people feel unsafe, uncomfortable, and create something that's like actually brings people together, educates, and I don't know, there's a bunch of other like readings I've done around it where it's like you don't want to erase, like erasure shouldn't be a part of it. Cancel culture shouldn't be part of like kind of like what's happened in the past. You can't cancel the past. The past just happened. So erasure and like canceling isn't the approach we should be taking. So trauma-informed placekeeping is like, or placemaking is like one kind of like way to reform and like transition spaces into spaces that are harmful to not be harmful any longer. And then we have another form of like kind of similar on a similar route, less so about like connection, but more on like, it's called counter monuments, which I think is so cool. Do you know them?
I've like heard of it, but go in.
Yeah. So counter monuments, it would be like, you know, like it kind of happened with like, I'm using the Ryerson one just because it's so close to like where we currently are. But it's basically like, or I read about one that was awesome, and it was this like person, he was like, it was in the States again, maybe like Connecticut, I don't know.
One of them.
He was part of like, you know, like the guns, you know?
Guns and
They have like the gun, what's it called? The gun association in the States.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The gun
Association. Yeah, them. Yes. That.
So like he was one of the founding members of this like gun thing. He also had ties to like the slave trade. He also like had
it's like all of it. Wow.
All of it. You know? All of it. And this Black artist came in and decided to like basically like counter monument, which is like the monument is still in that physical space, but let's transform everything around it into like a different narrative. So what she did was she put, I think it was like 6, maybe more, but like different kind of like Black women who were in the town who like contributed to like local politics or like local community and shared their stories instead of this like awful dude.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so like in that way you're like you're creating like education around like A, why this shouldn't be celebrated, and like B, like who should be celebrated, and trying to change the narrative. And I think it also ties into like offering kind of trauma informed and offering space for grief, because like you're then able to like reconnect in a new way. And so I don't know, that's what I like, another thing I'm like really interested in right now, and I can't wait to go to that. It also was here last spring at the Toronto Reference Library.
I had missed it, and then but now it's back, so I was like, oh okay. Plot twist.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, but it should be like almost like I like that it's a pop up. I don't want it to be permanent. Because I think pop ups are fun.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to that informality thing we were talking about before. When they start becoming, they get kind of stale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, although like we should
have permanent places to collectively have grief. But I think for that specific one, I like that it's a pop up. But I still want permanent places.
It's a balance. And context specific, of course.
Need diversity of things and have access to all things.
But it's funny because talking about the counter monument. Oh my goodness, counter monument. I was thinking. So one of the other clips I wanted to pull up, or articles, was like, have you heard of in Boston? There's the Embrace, the MLK. Martin Luther King Embrace. Basically, it's a statue that was recently done. It's just, and it's, for those listening, it's capturing the like embrace between Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King, not Jr. Coretta Scott King, and a hug, and they just took the arms and they created this really beautiful like piece together, showcasing like that moment. But yeah, it's a $10 million statue that was done. But of course, given the topic, even who's creating it, whose voice it's being centered, it's met with all kinds of trolls. The article headline says, artists who create a controversial $10 million MLK Embrace statue in Boston reacts to trolls, ultimately. For something that, and then all kinds of feedback about it. But yeah, it's funny when you talk about monuments and who you're celebrating, and then how those moments are captured, but then how you're telling different stories is really interesting, especially, and then when they manifest in public space, it creates really different mixture of emotions. And one of them are trolls, and then one of them is also unity. But I guess that's just the balance of space.
It's the balance, and also like the complexity and like messiness of public space, and like a big fear that like I know that a lot of people, like a lot of artists have, is like, oh, how is someone going to interpret my work? And I'm like, a million different ways. Like, people are going to hate it, people are going to love it, people won't care about it. Like, that's the beauty of public space. It's like, we're all different, we're all going to get together. But like, as long as you achieve some of your goal, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no one's ever going to like everything. So
No.
may as well try. I feel like the moral of the story is a lot of this, just try.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. Which is also, I don't know, back to like monuments for a moment.
Yeah.
And back to why like I think temporary is important. It's because like our history is so moving and contexts are constantly changing. So like one person we celebrate one day might be not the person we want to celebrate in the future.
Yeah.
So like, or like events, how some stories are told and other stories aren't. So like when we're thinking about a space, like how do we share multi-stories? Like how do we give a full picture? Whose stories are being told? And like, does it need to be permanent? Like,
yeah.
Do you need a permanent, is it something that future generations should always remember?
Yeah.
Or is it something that like is really important for the now?
Yeah, and I guess what is well, I'm sure there's someone else who can come and talk about that, but I guess the theories about like when things become monuments, like when at one point is that so-and-so statue. Like, I was in Athens recently and there's like a Gandhi statue that just like out of nowhere. I was like, cool. And then I remember going to Mexico City and there was a Gandhi station and I was like, oh, cool. But like literally a whole station named after him with like a symbol of him, because all the in Mexico City, at least, all the different stations have like a particular symbol and theme, which is really, really cool. Yeah, it's really
so cool.
But
Mexico City's just
it's really amazing. Invite us, please.
And the food. The food, the culture, everything.
It was fun. Yeah. Anyway, but but then I was like, thinking about, well, I know what he did, so why he became a monument, obviously. But I'm just curious about going into that conversation about like what certain moments in times are captured and like why and then how and then who puts them forward.
Yeah.
There's probably a theory. There's someone out there who's like specialized in all this. Whoever you are, come talk to us because I'm curious.
I don't know. I think a lot of people do it wrong. And people are just like, that person did something great. We got money. Let's just throw it at it. And there's not enough thought, which is why we have such an issue with monuments right now. Yeah.
True. Interesting. Okay, well, we've opened up a can of worms for another day. But I think we'll leave it on that note in terms of all the different things. But thank you, Margaux, for all your insights. It was so lovely. Well, first of all, catching up. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Second of all, chatting about all these things, cultural, arts, monuments, grief, all at once. It's been really lovely. So thank you, and you're welcome again anytime. And thank you all for listening to Untitled Planning, and stay tuned for the next episode.